Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I've been wanting to do a Resident Evil tier list for a while. Resident Evil is possibly my favorite video game series ever. Uh, there's 3 games out of the mainline games that I haven't played, but I still stand by what I say. I think I consider myself to be a pretty big Resident Evil fan. And the games of the mainline series that I have played them a bunch of times. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiers. We have S+. Those are the, borderline amazing games. We have S, we have A, we have B, we have C, and we have did not play or haven't played. So, right off the bat, Resident Evil, the original one, 1996 one. I played this game only some years after it came out on an emulator. I had already played the remake by then. I had played some Resident Evil games by then. I remember that, graphically it wasn't the most impressive thing out there. But I remember that I beat the entire game and I did not get bored at any point. I enjoyed it, but it definitely shows its age, and it's definitely not as good as the other Resident Evil games in terms of how well the puzzles are designed, how good the progression in the game is. It does get points for, being in a creepy mansion and having one of the best settings out of all the classic Resident Evil games. I give this game B. I'll place it in the B tier. It's good. It just shows its age. Resident Evil 2. So Resident Evil 2. I remember that this was the first Resident Evil game I saw. My brother and our neighbors, we gathered in our living room to play this game. I was like 6. I don't know. I was very young. I remember being blown away because my brother, he kept dying over and over at that very first level, right when the tanker blows up and you're in the street. We couldn't get past that, and seeing that super gory, you're dead, you died, a screen really triggered me. It gave me nightmares. I remember waking up one night absolutely bawling my eyes out because I was dreaming of pixelated zombies. And yeah, that was pretty traumatizing. I played this game again some years later and I enjoyed the crap out of it. This game, it just works so good. It's still creepy. It looks better than the first one, even though it's still on the OG PlayStation. The game looks pretty good for its era, and yeah, I place this game in the S tier. I think it's a noticeable improvement over the original Resident Evil. Okay, next game in the series is Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. So I also played this game like a while after it came out. I played it on the GameCube port. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I just thought, it was kind of short. I didn't replay this game as much as Resident Evil 2. I mean, I did enjoy the branching paths, and Nemesis was super scary. I really enjoyed, Carlos. I like the story. I love Raccoon City as a setting. Raccoon City on the verge of being annihilated is a very cool environment. I really love that. That being said, I did not enjoy this game as much as Resident Evil 2. I still think it's a good game, so I would place it in the A tier. Resident Evil Code Veronica. So, up until recently, this had been the only classic Resident Evil game that I hadn't played. And boy, I have to say, I didn't like it. So this is kind of controversial, I know. I played it on my PS4. I played this 2 years ago. And I remember that there were some parts that were like seriously difficult. Some boss fights were very difficult. Like, I remember that I spent so much time on the tyrant in the plane. I wondered whether I was gonna give up. I was really frustrated. And I also consider it having some of the most obtuse puzzles in the game. And not just puzzles, but like progression. I think the puzzles themselves were pretty good. Like, they had this one puzzle, I remember, with the paintings and different members of the, was it the Ashford family? It was a very ingenious puzzle, and I think it was really good. It was one of the best puzzles in the game. That being said, there were many moments in which I just wandered around endlessly for hours trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. I did not enjoy that. So yeah, I thought the game was too long too. Halfway through the game, I just wanted to be done with it. I was not having much fun, to be honest. So I will place this game in the C tier. Unfortunately, I did not enjoy Code Veronica, nor do I have any intention of replaying it, nor any desire to replay it. So there goes that. Next one, Resident Evil Remake. Okay, so this is the perfect classic regame. We all know, great, simple story. The setting, of course, is great. Just the haunted mansion. You don't need anything else. It's the most simple setting out of all of them, and it works great. Moody atmosphere, stunning graphics, the constant rain, pounding against the glass in the mansion. It just works so well. The game is graphically beautiful. Not only that, like, the art style is just great, regardless of how good the graphics are. The art is great. I vividly remember enjoying this game, and I think it's not a product of nostalgia, because I went and played this game again like 2 years ago on my PS4, and I enjoyed it all the same. I really enjoyed this Resident Evil, and this game is great. I do not think the one that came after holds up as well. So this game is our first game that's gonna go into the S+ tier. This game is outstanding, and if you haven't played a Resident Evil game, you can't go wrong with this one. All right, next one, Resident Evil 0. So this was one of the first re-games that I dared to play by myself. I remember I was very hyped for this game. I remember beating it over and over, and I even remember unlocking the infinite ammo for weapons and the hand cannon in the Leech Hunter minigame. Bonus game, right? So I got the rocket launcher and the submachine gun too. I got everything for this game. And I had no idea how lukewarm the reception to this game was until some years later, when I saw how people were dogging on this game. And I was like, why? I remember enjoying this game a lot. And then I replayed it. And after playing it again recently, I have to say that I agree. If you're playing this for the first time, I can imagine that the lack of an item box will have you making the mistake of leaving an important item like the hookshot somewhere very far away. The hookshot nonsense in the later parts of this game is complete garbage, okay? Going back and forth between locations is such a hassle in this game. It's not fun. Yeah, this game, it's good. I enjoy it. It's still graphically awesome. It's just not as good as the Resident Evil Remake. So I placed this game in the A tier. Alright, next one. Resident Evil 4.
Where's everyone going?
Bingo.
What can I say? This is the game, okay? It is obviously very controversial given the fact that it's not very Resident Evil-y. It's not, you know, it's very different. It's not a Metroidvania style game like the other ones. Of course, combat is more action focused. There's less focus on the horror, but it is still creepy. Okay, I got this for my 15th birthday on the GameCube, and wow, I vaguely remember playing it straight for like 2 or 3 days after I got it. I would beat it only to start, you know, to immediately start it again. I got it on my Xbox 360 years later, and I did it again. I replayed it a bunch of times again. This game is so epic. It's this game is just awesome. And then I got it on my Switch like 3 or 4 years ago. And in total, I'm certain that I have beat this game like 50 plus times. This game is timeless. It's just so fun. The combat is so fun. The progression is so fun. The story is so stupid and fun. It's great, you know. So yeah, I definitely place this game in the S plus tier. Okay, next one, Resident Evil 5. Now, this one is just not as good as Resident Evil 4. You would think that, you know, they struck gold with the gameplay formula in Resident Evil 4. But it's interesting how much like the change in scenarios, in setting, and story can really impact your enjoyment of the experience. So I remember enjoying this game back in the day. I played it co-op with a friend of mine, but I just, you know, I wasn't as hooked on it as I was with Resident Evil 4. And I was hyped. Like, I remember that at the time in the GameFAQs forums, people were sharing this leaked demo of the game that you could download, you could burn onto a DVD and get it working on your 360. And I did that, and I remember playing it, and yeah, I was super hyped for this game. But, you know, I didn't enjoy it as much. I tried to replay it recently with a friend. A co-op, you know, how it's meant to be played. He hadn't played Resident Evil 5. So, you know, I played it in the best setting possible, you know. He hasn't played it. I haven't played it in a while. We're playing it co-op. And you know what? We played like 4 or 5 chapters and we just got bored. We didn't finish it. I couldn't bring myself to finish the game again. I found it boring. So yeah. This game's just not as good. I'll place it in the C tier. Alright, next one is, okay, the next 3 games, this is when I took like a gaming hiatus. I didn't play games for a while. So Resident Evil Revelations, Resident Evil 6, and Resident Evil Revelations 2, I kind of didn't play. Resident Evil Revelations, I did play for like 2 or 3 chapters. I got it for my Switch like 2 or 3 years ago. I didn't like the movement. I didn't like the aiming. How finicky like the dead zones were with the joystick. So I did play it technically like 2 or 3 chapters before I got bored. But I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt, and I'm gonna place it in the did not play tier. Same with Resident Evil 6. I know that Resident Evil 6 is infamous. It gets a lot of hate. As a Resident Evil game, it definitely seems like it's, you know, not much of a Resident Evil game. It does seem like a fun game. I'm not gonna crucify it because I haven't played it, so I don't really have an opinion on it. I might play it someday. You know, I might just stream it, you know, play it and stream it on my channel. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. Next one, Resident Evil Revelations 2. I did not play. I know very little about this game. I know that Claire is in it. Something about Barry's daughter or something. I'm not sure. I know very little about this game. I haven't played it, so did not play. All right, Resident Evil 7. So I had already played Resident Evil 2 Remake by the time I played 7. but I remember that it did not spark the same joy within me that Resident Evil 2 Remake did. So I only beat it once, and I didn't have much desire to go through it again. I felt that the first-person viewpoint, while scary, it made the controls and shooting feel clunky in a way that bothered me, even though it shouldn't. Like, moving around and combat, which is very integral to Resident Evil, it just didn't feel as fun in this game. So, what makes Resident Evil stand out as a horror game, right? There are differing opinions on this. So, I think what a lot of people enjoy about Resident Evil is that Resident Evil has a good balance of the spookiness and the scares with the gameplay. It's actually fun to shoot and fight things in Resident Evil. So that's what makes, Resident Evil contrast with all these other like very scary psychological games where you might not have weapons and you're forced to just run around. In Resident Evil, you fight stuff, and it is fun to fight stuff. I did not find it very fun to fight stuff in Resident Evil 7 with how much you're restricted by the first-person perspective and your character's movement. So, good Resident Evil formula. The puzzles, they're great. It's just, the combat that I didn't enjoy as much. I placed this game in the A tier. It's not bad. Next, Resident Evil 2, the remake. Okay, so this is why I placed Resident Evil 7 lower on this list. Gameplay-wise, this game just feels so much better. So this was the game that brought me back from a 6 to 7 year gaming hiatus, and I bought a PS4 here in Japan just to play it. The first thing that I did was buy the PG version of this game, and I was playing the game, right? You know that very infamous scene near the beginning where you find this cop and you pick his head up and it's just his jaw is just broken. Well, in the PG version of Resident Evil 2 here in Japan, the guy's face is there. It's just all bloody. It's not broken in half or anything. It's just all bloody. It looks very stupid. I went back the very next day. I got the X-rated version of the game. It still has some limitations here in Japan. For example, zombies' heads don't completely blow up if you get a headshot. They have this blood splatter. It's kind of lame. Anyway, but in terms of how much I enjoyed this game, just like with Resident Evil 4, I replayed this game over and over again because the classic Resident Evil formula is here, and combat is sublime in this game. It feels great. This game just feels great in your hand, and at the same time it has a great presentation. It looks awesome graphically. This game is top tier. If you don't know which Resident Evil game to play first, you can't go wrong with this one. I placed this just a little higher than the Resident Evil 1 remake on my list, personally. And I think you should start with this if you haven't played a Resident Evil game. This is definitely S+ tier, okay? This is as good as it gets with Resident Evil. Next one, Resident Evil 3 Remake. So I echo the common consensus about this game that it's awesome, but it's just not up to par with the Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's gorgeous, the combat is still satisfying, but the progression just isn't as satisfying, and the lack of branching paths, like in the original, hold it back from being in the top tier. Nemesis is not, the same thing he was in Resident Evil 2. He's just there for like scripted moments. So the game is, different from the original, but that's not where it loses points. It just loses points by not feeling as complete as Resident Evil 2. That's my biggest gripe with it. It just isn't as fun as Resident Evil 2. I replayed it like 2 or 3 times compared with Resident Evil 2, which I replayed many more times. So yeah, that's what holds it back from the top tier. I'll place it in the S tier, okay? I'm being pretty generous with it. And lastly, let's talk about Resident Evil 8. I played this recently and it was entertaining. I played it on my PS5 with buttery smooth 60 frames per second. It was awesome. I remember being intrigued by the story while playing it, and I definitely remember House Beneviento.
Excuse me!
Being the gameplay-oriented guy that I am, I really enjoyed the weapon customization and combat elements. And even though I still feel that the third-person perspective just feels better and more entertaining, the first-person perspective does work in this game better than it does in Resident Evil 7. The boss fights I didn't feel were that fun, and I actually struggled a fair bit with them. I played on the hardest difficulty, right? Lady Demetrius, the fish guy, and the final boss specifically, I had a lot of trouble with them, and I don't remember enjoying the battles that much against them. I don't even remember the name of the final boss. That's how like not interesting I found her. Overall, I enjoyed myself, but I definitely didn't feel that this game sparked the same joy within me that I felt with Resident Evil 4 or Resident Evil 2, the remake. So I will place this game in the S tier because I still did enjoy it, and I still do think it's a great game. So there we have it. In the S plus tier, we have 3 games. We have Resident Evil Remake, and Resident Evil 4, and Resident Evil 2, the remake. So yeah, that's my tier list. Feel bad for Code Veronica, but it is what it is. If you want to see me play through Resident Evil 6, let me know. I might just stream it if that's something that people actually want to see. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. So take care.